Opinions expressed on this radio program do not necessarily reflect the views of this radio station.
My friends and I always tune into the Todd Levitt Law Show. Todd is entertaining, informative, and always delivers the goods.
He never sugarcoats it. He doesn't tell you what you want to hear. He tells you what you need to hear.
Hold on, Todd. Don't let go. It's time for the Todd L. Levitt Law Show.
Welcome to the Todd L. Levitt Marijuana Law Podcast. Good morning, good evening, and good night. I'm yours truly, attorney Todd L. Levitt, broadcasting and podcasting from the mothership in the middle of Midton in a beautiful green nutrient field. The field is flourishing. The snow is gone. The weather is warm. Craig Russell, the muscle, we are back.
First day of spring this past week, and does it feel like spring to you?
It is. It does feel like spring. I'm a spring baby. I'm a March baby.
Okay.
I'm officially a year older as of this show.
Wow, happy birthday.
Well, yeah, I don't celebrate birthdays,
I know,
but
still.
I'll take what I can get. Bill Knapp's was open. I'd get 54% off my meal, but they closed down. I'm just saying.
When is the last time you were at a Bill Knapp's?
When my grandparents, may they all rest in peace, were alive, they were in their 90s, and I never could figure out why they wanted to go there, but they always got like 80, 90% off their meals. It was great.
That was. Yeah, Bill Knapp's has been open that's a total Michigan thing. If you're listening on the podcast.
Farrell's. Remember Farrell's?
Farrell's is another. So those are Michigan things for sure. Bill Knapp's for sure. They still sell that chocolate cake. You can buy it like in grocery stores and stuff, the Bill Knapp's chocolate cake.
I'm hungry. Farrell's was, the one I went to was at 14 and 75, right there by the Oakland Mall where I used to work at Merry-Go-Round, by the way. Hey, Craig, we opened the show with just a stellar band that just destroyed it. And what is the name of that group?
That band is called Stratovarius, not to be confused with Stradivarius, the composer who also came up with violins. Stratovarius. They're from Finland. The name of the song is Black Diamond. That's a good rockin' song, man.
And you'll find out later on in the show, listeners, why we are playing that tunage from the great country of Finland. And it is a great country.
It's a beautiful area. I've never been to that part of the world, but if I was ever going to go to, I want to go to England someday, and then probably somewhere Norway, Finland, Sweden, somewhere in the in that area of the world. I think those places are very interesting. A lot of interesting people there.
Yeah. You want to know what I'm excited about?
You're excited about the 420 Canna Expo coming up in less than a month.
I am stoked about the 420 Canna Expo, and what I'm excited about is that you and I are going to be actually broadcasting a show live to all of the attendees. So if you're a fan of the show of shows here and you want to meet Big Hair, Little John, hopefully Steve Lehto, Vinny, who was on the show last week, Gavin's going to be out there. Everybody who's been on the show, Frank Bailey's going to be out there.
Oh,
wow. Come out to the show. And we're going to be broadcasting for everyone in attendance, and it's free to the public. And I got to tell you, Sour Apple, one of my favorite shops in the entire universe, will be displaying out there. Corey, Mitch, and the entire family of Sour Apple, located in Mount Pleasant and Everett, Michigan, they're all aboard. And we've got a lot of great companies. We have artists that are going to be displaying can art, Craig.
Oh, wow.
We've got a gentleman flying in from Colorado. We've got 2 local artists that are going to be there, and they'll be coming on the show. But the exhibit floor is filling up, and I'm stoked. I'm ready to go.
420cannaexpo.com if you want to find out more information about the show, how to get a hotel room. There's going to be a big country concert that weekend at the Soaring Eagle Casino and Resort, so there's going to be a lot of people there. It's going to be a fun time. Is your offspring going to be there? Will Rachel be there? I mean, Vinny's going to be there, so I'm assuming.
My offspring is going to be there. My clerk Rachel's going to be there. Jen's going to be there. Everyone's going to be there. We've got hundreds and hundreds of people that are coming. You can go on our website, sign up for a free gift baggie.
Oh, yeah.
It's going to be amazing. Friday night, we have a VIP party in the bar, the new Ascend Bar, out there at the casino. By the way, no product is going to be allowed on property. Folks, you're not going to be able to smoke or participate in any type of legal cannabis at the expo. That's not what the show's about. The show's about education and introducing the public to every facet of the industry, including business to business. So if you're a business out there and you're interested in exhibiting, you'll have an opportunity to meet other exhibitors. But it's also for the public, and we've already been renewed for next year, and we haven't even done this one yet. So a big shout out to all the members of the tribe and everything they've done to make this happen. I'm just stoked, Craig. I keep using that term. I know it's an old term. I get a lot of feedback and from younger people, what the heck does that mean? But I'm stoked. I'm an old skater guy. What do you want from me?
No, I totally get it. Plus mycompassion.org is going to be there. Heidi's going to be there. There's going to be a lot of fun.
Oh yeah, big shout out to Heidi, mycompassion.org. Cannabis Attorneys of Michigan. We're going to have Denise on the show here in upcoming weeks. We're going to be featuring in the next couple of weeks all of the exhibitors and sponsors of the show, so you'll have an idea of who's coming, who's going to be there, and who you'll be able to see. And we have a day-long ongoing seminar that's free to the public, from a medical doctor, lawyers, pharmacology professors, DJ Short, cancer patient or survivor. We've got a lot of good information going on. And Craig, to kick it all off, smokable medical marijuana is now legal in the great state of Florida. How's that for a deviation?
Wow,
sidetrack in there.
You took a turn to the south there at this point. Wow, because
I did take a turn to the south.
That's what the people in Florida need. They need to be. They need legal smokable marijuana there. The crazy people in Florida need it. But that's good for them. No, that's good. Is this medicinal or is this recreational?
So Republican Governor Ron DeSantis, kudos to him. He signed a bill a couple week back that legalizes smokable medical marijuana in Florida. Okay. And get this, he's the one that pushed the state lawmakers to pass the legislation by the middle of March, and he kept his promise and pushed it through. Big shout out to him. So the Sunshine State, and back in 2016, Craig, legalized medical marijuana through a ballot measure. And in 2017, the lawmakers actually passed legislation that outlawed smokable forms of the substance. So here you have the people like Michigan who rose up, who spoke, got the ballot measure passed. Then you have the legislators in 2017 going against, once again, the will of the people. That pisses me off to no end. They outlawed smokable forms of marijuana. So DeSantis, becomes the governor, and he then says, hey, wait a minute. This is what the people want, and I'm going to give them what they want. And so he filed a motion for the state appellate court to drop a lawsuit questioning the constitutionality of the 2017 ban, which has now been lifted, by the way. And he warned lawmakers that he would, drop the state's appeal of the lawsuit if they didn't pass legislation to repeal their original ban that they put in place in 2017. So the Republican governor, actually threatened the legislators that if you don't remove that 2017 ban, I'm going to the appellate courts. And they listened, and the will of the people has been heard in a great state of Florida. And medical marijuana users are allowed to possess up to 4 ounces, but they still, as in Michigan, cannot smoke in public places. And the bill, I looked into it, also specifies that individuals under 18 can only smoke medical marijuana if they are terminally ill and had received a second opinion from another doctor. So good news in the state of Florida. So what do you say, Craig?
Right on. Well, a couple of questions. First place, isn't that unusual that there are actually medical marijuana patients under the 18 who can consume the product? Isn't 18 kind of usually the cutoff point, no matter what, in most places?
No, not at all. I mean, we did stories in the past on the state of Illinois that their Republican governor also. And look, we're not Democrats or Republicans, but we're just reporting the news here. We're Americans,
right?
And although I did love George Bush and Reagan, but I'm just saying, I'm just saying, we're just reporting the news here. But Illinois passed some legislation over the past year that allowed parents, remember we talked about this, to go to the elementary schools to provide medicine to their children who have seizures. So that's a good thing.
That's right. And on the other side of that, and I think this is a trend we're starting to see. I mean, normally, and like you said, we're not Republicans, we're not Democrats, we're Americans. But in the past, it's always usually been Republicans a little more conservative, thus not as much into passing any kind of marijuana legalization bills, laws, etc. Democrats a little more liberal and a little more into that. We're starting to see those lines kind of get blurred now. It's starting
because the people have spoken, and I got to give it.
That's right.
And we harp on politicians all the time, but I have to give it to the politicians out there who listen to the will of the people.
Yep.
I mean, and that's hey, they work for us. We're the ones that put them in office.
And we're the ones that pay their salaries, too. So
you better believe it.
But I think that's good. I think that the lines are blurring. Pretty soon it's not going to be, well, because they're Republicans, they're not going to be for it. Pretty soon it's going to be whoever it is going to be for it because they're for it, not just because they're Republican or Democrat.
Can't we just be citizens and not have to be party affiliate and just, live the way we want to live our lives? I just want to be left alone. I say it all the time. I want to be left alone. I don't want people telling me what to do or what I cannot do or what I can't do to, as an individual, sovereign individual. Listen, I'm all for law enforcement. There's got to be some kind of, standards so we don't have a chaotic society. But when it comes to big government, I want less government. I want less government telling us what we can and cannot do in our castles, in our homes, where, we have sovereign rights to, privacy.
Can't we all just get along?
Can't we just be left alone? I just want to be left alone.
Todd, we got to go to break, but when we come back, we've got a story about the happiest country in the world.
Is that right, Craig? And I wonder what that will be. I guess we'll have to wait till after break
to find out. We'll be right back.
This is attorney Todd L. Levitt with an important message.
What's that, Todd?
Craig, mark your calendar. April 20th, 2019, the nation's premier event for everything cannabis and hemp is descending on the Soaring Eagle Casino and Resort located right here in Mount Pleasant, Michigan.
What's that, Todd?
420 Canna Expo will feature the industry's most knowledgeable professionals from cultivation, medical, recreational, research, staffing, canna tourism, smoke shops, grow shops, merchandisers, glass makers, and more. Every facet of the industry will be represented on April 20th, 2019 at the Soaring Eagle Casino and Resort. For more information on attending, sponsorship, and exhibitor space, log on to 420cannaexpo.com. That's 420cannaexpo.com. And stay tuned to our podcast for more information. Welcome back to the Todd L. Levitt Law Show, broadcasting and podcasting from the middle of the mitten, a beautiful green nutrient field, with my good friend Craig Russell, the Muscle. Craig, you look great this morning. What did you do? What did you do with yourself there, Craig? You look different. What did you do to your hair?
I haven't showered in 2 days. That's what I did. That's why I'm on the other side of the room, man. Come on, Hey,
big shout out, by the way, to the Dude Grow shows.
Yeah,
I love the Dude and Scotty Reel. Big shout out. Check out the Dude Grow shows on YouTube and all the social media. Be sure to follow those guys and watch their podcast. Very informative dudes.
The music we played was Stratovarius by, that's the name of the band. Black Diamond is the name of the song, and they're from Finland. And why in the world would we play that song when we normally play good old American rock and roll, Todd? Why would we play that song?
Well, Craig, for the second year in a row, the country of Finland, for those who keep track and register these standards, have classified Finland as the happiest country on planet Earth. And I just want to ask one of my favorite Finnish attorneys, the handsome and talented attorney Steve Lehto, who's of Finnish descent, if that's true. Stevie, is that true?
Absolutely true. The happiest place on earth, without question.
Finland, really? Now, Steve, are you from Finland, or are you from?
Well, no. All of my ancestors came over here from Finland, and they lived in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, where there's a big Finnish community up there.
Yes, that's what I knew.
The Finns, we came over back then because the economic conditions weren't that good, but the 20th century, without question, that the happiest country on earth, people of Finland are very, very happy. And it's interesting because there's a couple of things that they do that might seem a little odd till you put it all together in a big picture, but they consume lots of coffee, lots of alcohol, and they also are the ones who invented the sauna, which is the hot room you go sit in and you sweat, okay?
Sure.
And Finland, they don't believe there's anything wrong with the naked human body, which is another thing that keeps you very happy if you believe that to be true. So you go sit in a sauna, you get good, hot, and sweaty, and then you run out and jump in a snowbank, down some vodka, and have a good time. So what could be happier than that?
I would think it'd be good business to be an OBGYN in that country then if you're in a sauna. I'm just saying, drinking coffee and alcohol, I mean, there's a lot of love going around there, Stevie.
Yeah, and the other thing, too, is, and we don't know why this is the one that baffles me, but Finland has more heavy metal bands per capita than any country on Earth.
Really?
And so there's something about they love their coffee, their alcohol, and their heavy metal.
Wow.
That's why we opened up
the love.
with that group on the show today, and out of nowhere, I mean, Lehto's in the mothership here, and attorney Steve Lehto, folks, if you're just tuning in, Steve is a regular on our show. Steve is one of the top consumer lawyers in the country. He specializes, amongst other things, in lemon law. He's met and is friends with Jay Leno. He's been featured on TV, satellite. I mean, you've written novels. I mean, you wrote the Lemon Law Bible. I mean, Steve, tell the listeners about your amazing background.
Well, and that's the interesting thing. I practice lemon law, the bulk of what I do, but I've also written a few books. And one thing about Finns, sticking with this theme, is that Finland is one of the most literate places on earth. More people in Finland can read and write and speak well than again, per capita than most countries. If you ever look at the education levels and how people do on standardized tests, Finland is always the top of the list across the board. And I hate to admit, but America is down a few slots almost every single time. But we're big on education and we're big on literacy. So I've done my part. I've written about 15 books, including a couple books about cars and some Michigan history books and the Lemon Law Bible you mentioned. And so I've done my part. But like I said, I love automobiles. So in my practice, I help people with defective cars. If people got defective cars, they give me a call and I help them out. And if they're interested in automotive history, I wrote a book about Preston Tucker, who started the car company after World War II. Yep. And I also wrote a book about the Chrysler Turbine Car Project. Chrysler put jet engines in cars for a little while. So,
well, Steve, talk about, obviously we're a law show. I'm a defense attorney. You're an attorney. And Craig plays one on TV. Yeah. But how does somebody know? Tell us about lemon law. That's something really interesting I know nothing about. Because you hear stories all the time of how people buy cars from these roadside used car lots. What is a lemon law? How does it work?
Well, the lemon law only covers if you bought a brand new car or truck. So if you buy a brand new car or truck and they can't fix it, it's got something wrong with it. And I've got horror stories from clients of mine who buy a $45,000 SUV and the air conditioning just doesn't work, or the transmission fails, or the engine fails. And if they can't fix it after a certain number of repair attempts, the vehicle's a lemon, you can make the manufacturer buy it back. But the problem in Michigan and in many states is that the lemon law does not cover used cars. So if you buy a used car from a dealership, for instance, and they sell it to you as is, there's a big warning sticker on the window saying you're buying this vehicle as is with all faults, then generally there's no coverage for you on typical things that can break down on the car. So I get a lot of calls from people who are very disappointed when I tell them that I'm really sorry, but having bought the car used as is from a dealership, there's not much you can do here. So It's very, very important that you do your research before you spend the money. Get the vehicle inspected, take it for a test drive, kick the tires, climb underneath it and look for leaks. Do all that stuff yourself before you hand your money over. And I can't stress that enough.
Now, what about, because there's these insurance companies that will sell their like extended warranties, or you pay, they'll say, you pay your car insurance every month to make sure in case you get into an accident. But if something goes wrong with your car, you get this different kind of insurance, and that's supposed to help cover the cost of in case you do have a problem with a used car. Usually it's up to like 150,000 miles. Do you recommend any of those?
Yeah, those are called third-party warranties. I'm not too crazy about them because the average person who has one of those, when you file a claim, they often act like insurance companies, meaning that they make you jump through all kinds of hoops to get your money. And I would recommend most people instead simply set the money aside in like a savings account to protect themselves in case of a need for that. And if they never need it, then that's some rainy day money. But it's better to invest the money the front end to get the vehicle inspected by a mechanic if you can, and make sure you just do your homework at the front. Make sure you just are less likely to get ripped off that way.
I've got a question for you. Is there any such thing if you go purchase a new car that you have 72 hours in which to return it if you don't like it? I mean, people come up to me once every other year and hey, I just bought a car and I heard and I don't like it and it's been only 24 hours. I was told I have 72 hours to return it. I never even heard of that. To me, I'm going to say that's not true. Is that true?
And it's not true, but you have to understand, I get that phone call about once a week. Someone calls my office on Monday. They go, I bought a car on Friday. When does the 3 days period start? I go, what 3 day period? And I know what they're asking, but there is no 3 day right to return something. People wish there was. But that cooling off period will occasionally happen on some documents you sign, like a bank, on a mortgage, for instance. You might have a 3 day cooling off period. But when you're buying a car, there is no 3 day cooling off period in Michigan at all. Once you sign the documents and hand them your money, they hand you the keys. That car is yours. I've had people tell me they drove off the lot and the car blew up. And guess what? It blew up 3 minutes after they got it. It's yours.
Now, there are some car dealers, and maybe that's a gimmick or maybe that's a promotion that they do, but there are some dealers that will do that. They'll say, you've got 72 hours. And I think what ends up happening is, much like if somebody finds a rat in a can of soda or pop, it always goes back to it was in a can of Coke, because one car dealer does it, then then everybody thinks that everybody does that, and maybe that's not true.
I know what you're talking about. There's a couple of car dealerships that do that as an advertising thing, and if they give that to you in writing and say you've got 3 days to return this vehicle, then you've got it. But don't assume it gets to you by law, because there's no law that says you can do that.
The other question I get is, hey, I just bought a car from a buddy of mine or somebody I met online, and I picked it up, brought it home, and the transmission just gave out, doesn't work. I want my money back.
Yeah, when you buy a vehicle used from an individual, whether you know the person or not, it's presumed to be that you're buying it as is. The same thing happens with the dealerships when they sell you a used car with a big warning. But they don't have to give you a warning if it's an individual selling you the car. So if you picked it up off of Craigslist, or even if it's sold to you by a relative, if it blows up the next day, you can't go back on them for that unless you can prove that they knew it was going to blow up, and that's almost impossible to prove.
Now, what happens if you get them, like usually when you buy a car from a private individual, I've done that a couple of times. You try and get a bill of sale saying, hey, here's proof positive this person has sold me this car. Each one of us writes down signs it and writes down a little receipt almost. Could you get them to do, hey, I'll give you 7 days. If you, in any time in these 7 days, you can bring it back to me and I'll give you exactly your money back. Can you get them to do that? And would that hold up in a court of law?
It would hold up, but I've never heard of anybody doing that.
Really?
And I suspect that the average seller would go, what's to keep you from beating on this car for 6 days and returning it?
Yeah.
So I don't think you'd have much luck with that, but hey, give it a try and see what happens.
Here's some advice for the listening audience out there, since I am a defense attorney. If you do purchase a used car from a dealer or otherwise, and you're operating that motor vehicle on a public roadway and you get stopped, and the officer at some point, for whatever reason, ends up searching your car, whether they have a right to do so or not, and they find Adderall or any other types of narcotic prescription pills in that vehicle, guess what? You're supposed to know what you have dominion and possession of. You could be charged with transporting, possessing, and delivering narcotics, which could be a 4, 5, even 10-year felony in some cases. So if you do purchase a used vehicle, I recommend you take it home, or you make sure it's cleaned out, top to bottom. First off, you shouldn't put yourself in a position where you're going to be pulled over in the first place. But if you have a kid out there that's been in college and you have possession of your child's vehicle while they're on spring break or otherwise, you better make sure what's in that vehicle.
And, Todd, it's interesting. I have a channel on YouTube. You can look up Steve Lehto on YouTube. You'll find all my videos. I've done videos on how to behave during a traffic stop. I've done videos on when can the police search your car at the roadside. I've done a bunch of videos on these different topics to explain a lot of this stuff in plain English. And it's interesting you point that out because, a lot of times a police officer will pull you over, say he saw you make an illegal turn or you changed lanes improperly, and he'll pull you over for that. And once in a while, they'll say, by the way, do you mind if I search your car? And I've had people say, well, of course, sure, go right ahead, officer. I've got nothing to hide. But the problem, of course, is what if you just bought the car a week ago and somebody stashed something in the back seat and they forgot to retrieve it when they sold it to you? So
that's the thing. I agree.
Yeah, I always tell people, they say, well, if the police officer asks, very, very politely say, am I required to let you search? And if he says, no, I'm just asking, say, I'm really sorry, but, I'd prefer that you didn't. And decline it as politely as you can.
Your constitutional rights are there for you to utilize. So you have a right to remain silent. You have a right against, illegal search and seizure under the Fourth Amendment. You have, as I said, a right against self-incrimination under the Fifth Amendment. You need to use it. And also, look, when an officer does stop you, if you happen to get stopped, keep your hands on the wheel and just be polite.
That's all you can really do. I can add to that story a little bit. My ex-in-laws bought a car, I want to say from a car rental place. They bought it used. It had been part of the fleet, and they got a deal on it. 3 or 4 years after they had it, they open up the back seat and find a bag of marijuana in the car. Now, this was, 15 years ago.
All right. That's what I want to just clap for that. Did they smoke it?
No, they did not. They were.
What do you mean they didn't smoke it? Would they throw it away?
Well, I couldn't.
What's wrong with them?
But it was a long time ago. It was back before there was even medicinal marijuana. So that is very true. You need to go through. If you buy a used car from somebody, you need to clean it out and make sure you know what you're doing, because if you get pulled over and you get searched like that, you could end up paying for somebody else's mistake for sure. But
if you're right, and to add to that, Stephen Craig, I can't, as a defense attorney, I specialize in operating with the presence of drugs, operating motor vehicle, drinking and driving offenses. Steve, you've done a number of those as well. Oh, yeah. And if there's two individuals in a motor vehicle, the officer approaches the vehicle, and let's say, for instance, you're the driver and the passenger happens to drop Adderall in the front seat, and you don't have, and as a driver, you don't have a script for it, and all of a sudden the officer says, whose Adderall is that on the floor? If he or she's able to identify it, and the passenger says, it's not mine, and then the driver's looking around going, well, it's not mine either. Well, guess what? If the passenger denies it and the driver denies it, and it's the driver's vehicle, or the driver it's the parent vehicle or has dominion and control over that vehicle, you're the one that's going to be taking responsibility and placed under arrest. So you better know who your friends are and what they're possessing. That's another thing. If you're transporting a friend and they're transporting or possessing an illegal controlled substance, I'm not talking about marijuana. I'm talking about something that they don't have a script for, or some other illegal substance or otherwise, you're putting yourself at risk.
Always know who you are traveling and what they're traveling with.
Yeah, and we have attorney Steve Lehto, who is of Finnish descent, which is the happiest country in the world. And Steve, you are my happiest friend besides big hair. But we would love to have you back for another segment. Before we go to break, can you give out your amazing social media? I watch your YouTube channel. I'm a fan. I follow you. How can people watch your channel and subscribe?
Well, if you just go to YouTube and type in Steve Lehto, 2 words, S-T-E-V-E, next word, L-E-H-T-O, exactly like it doesn't sound, Lehto, L-E-H-T-O. You'll find my channel on YouTube. I've got a little over 50,000 subscribers right now. Or you can look me up on the internet. Lehto'sLaw.com is my homepage, L-E-H-T-O-S-L-A-W, Lehto'sLaw.com.
We will be right back with more Steve and more Todd. The Todd L. Levitt Law Show. We'll be right back.
This is attorney Todd L. Levitt with an important message.
What's that, Todd?
Craig, mark your calendar. April 20th, 2019, the nation's premier event for everything cannabis and hemp is descending on the Soaring Eagle Casino and Resort located right here in Mount Pleasant, Michigan.
What's that, Todd?
420 Canna Expo will feature the industry's most knowledgeable professionals from cultivation, medical, recreational, research, staffing, Canada tourism, smoke shops, grow shops, merchandisers, glass makers, and more. Every facet of the industry will be represented on April 20th, 2019 at the Soaring Eagle Casino and Resort. For more information on attending, sponsorship, and exhibitor space, log on to 420canaexpo.com. That's 420canaexpo.com. And stay tuned to our podcast for more information.
Hey, welcome back to the Todd L. Levitt Law Show. My good friend and one of the greatest attorneys on earth. I'm Steve Lehto, and I'm glad to be back talking to him as well.
Now, were you saying that Todd's were you saying Todd one of the greatest attorneys, or you're one of the greatest attorneys?
Both.
I was trying to be ambiguous.
You did a great job. You did a great job.
I appreciate that. Steve and I met many moons ago, and we're fellow shredders. We started off mountain biking together back in the day, and Steve is responsible for getting me into biking. When we first became attorneys, we started hanging out together, and he would tell me stories of how himself and his three brothers. Steve, is that right? You have three?
Five brothers.
There's 5 Finnish Lehtos out there. Wow.
Six
total.
Steve and 5.
Any sisters? Any females?
No, 0.
Wow.
Todd, I remember distinctly mountain biking with you at Pontiac Lake, out in the woods on a weekday afternoon. We both were kind of playing hooky from court, and my cell phone rang, and I stopped, and I go, shh, I have to take this. It's a client. And I took a phone call from a client. We're out in the woods wearing biking stuff. We're covered in mud. And I'm telling my client, yes, I will see you in court tomorrow. Yes. Okay. Thank you very much. Goodbye.
I love Steve. I love him. And by the way, Steve is a descendant of the happiest country in the world, that being what, Steve?
That would be Finland, my friend.
Finland. And now the United States fell a space. Last year they were 18th. Now this year they're 19th. Dude, now I have a question for you, Steve, and maybe you know the answer to this. Is marijuana legal in Finland?
Well, it's not. And the problem is this. If they legalized everyththing, they'd be even happier. And right now, they're beating everybody so badly that it's important for them to say, you know something, we'll be nice and only beat you guys by a little bit. But the Finns, they're relaxed on a lot of stuff. Public nudity is okay. If you're going to go sit in a sauna, it's okay to sit with different people of the opposite gender. No problem at all. But when it comes to marijuana, they're still a little conservative on that. But alcohol, sure. Coffee, yeah, drink it by the gallon. We don't care. But yeah. So I suspect they'll come around on that shortly, but they're not there yet.
They're happy, but they don't want to be that happy.
Exactly. Everything in moderation.
And you're from the Upper Peninsula, where there is a big Finnish population. Is it because did the Finns migrate to the Upper Peninsula? Probably because of some of the copper and the ore and the employment opportunities that way, but also because it was a similar climate to what they have in Finland and in Norwegia in that area.
Yeah, you actually nailed both of the points at a time when most of the migration was happening. There was a lot of jobs available in the Upper Peninsula where you didn't need to speak English.
Sure.
And so they knew that. So they all flocked to the area. And when they got there, they said, hey, wait, this place is cold. It's underneath 16 feet of snow in January. It's just like home. So they would send notes and letters home saying, hey, everybody, come on over here. There's jobs for everybody, and it looks just like Finland. And
hey,
so
Steve,
there's a huge influx of Finns.
Wait, hold on. I want to ask you, this podcast, or this is a radio show podcast, is heard all over the world. Europe, Spain, Australia, hopefully Finland. Big shout out to my 3% Irish cousins in Ireland who listen to the show in Canada and South America. For those listening, can you explain what the Upper Peninsula of Michigan is? We have the Lower Peninsula that looks like a hand, the Mitten State.
Yeah. And if you look at a map of America, Michigan, everyone knows that Michigan looks like your hand. If you ask someone from Michigan, where are you from, they'll point at a spot on their hand. But that's the lower peninsula. And there's another peninsula higher up, further north, and it goes up against Lake Superior, which is the biggest lake in North America. And so it's very, very far north. In the summertime, the days are really, really long. In the wintertime, the nights are really, really long. Mm-hmm. And they do get, many, many, many more feet of snow up there than we get down here. So it takes a certain kind of mentality to live in that kind of a climate, especially through the winters. Very, very hardy people to do that. So that's one of the reasons the Finns enjoyed that area so well, because to them it was, like I said, just like where they came from.
And very hardy people who created a very hardy food. Some would say the inspirational dish of Michigan, the pasty.
Well, it's interesting. The pasty is not Finnish. It was embraced by the Finns, but the pasty is brought to North
for
America
the loggers, right?
By the Cornish miners from Cornwall.
Okay.
Yeah.
The Cornish miners from Cornwall, England. Is that right? Cornwall, England.
Yeah.
Did I see Cornwall in the show The Tudors? Was there a guy named Cornwall that was named after Cornwall, England? The show The Tudors reference there. Does anybody know what I'm talking about?
Not a clue.
That show, no.
No.
Hey, Steve, what's cannabis like in Finland, by the way, since you're of Finnish descent?
Like I said, it's not legal there yet, but I'll tell you what the Finns are most proud of is, that in World War II, Russia attacked Finland, and Finland actually stood up to them. And now they did eventually have to sign a treaty with Russia, but Finland maintained their independence despite the fact they're attacked by Russia basically twice. And so Finland, a very, very small country, daring to stand up to Russia and surviving is actually something we're very, very proud of.
And didn't I see that Finland's only really been in 2 wars, in World War II being one of them, and one of them was a war in the 1800s, is that correct? Something like that?
It depends on how you measure them and how you gauge the wars. But I can tell you right now, if you're really interested in this kind of stuff, look up a guy named Simo Heha. And he was a sniper in World War II. Simo Heha, kid you not. He's a sniper in World War II who's credited with the most kills of any sniper in history. He and I hate to talk about this, but he killed over 500 Russians who were attacking Finland. And he did it using a gun that had iron sights. Look it up. And he holds the record as the most successful sniper in world history.
And is that why part of why Finland is so happy? It's a very safe country. They don't have a lot of crime there, especially there, as we've unfortunately found out about other places in the world. Gun control is really, really tight there too. Yes.
Well, it's not so much that; it's just crime is low. Literacy is high. The standard of living is quite good. One of the interesting things about Finland is that it's harder to become a teacher than it is to become a lawyer.
Really?
And that's because they actually respect their teachers so much, they pay them so much, that there's competition to get into the schools to become a teacher. And
Steve,
if you can't become a teacher, then you become a lawyer.
I just want to apologize on that note to all of the substitute teachers that I tormented as a kid growing up. I'm sorry I brought a straw to class and wetted some toilet paper, put in a straw, and just shot it out at you. I got kicked out of class one day for doing that. I don't want any kids listening to the show to follow anything I'm talking about. So earplugs, parents. But to all the substitute teachers out there and my teachers, I'm sorry for my behavior from nursery school all the way up to high school. I just want to apologize.
We're learning a lot about Finland with Finland's native son, Steve Lehto. Who is
Wait
here.
a minute.
Goodness. Aren't you?
I mean, come on, Steve and Craig. Didn't you ever give a substitute teacher a hard time?
Not like you.
Steve? You're not? Okay.
My father worked for the school district when I was a child, and so I had to keep in even better line than the other students.
No, when I say a hard time, I didn't do anything horrible other than when they weren't looking, maybe me make squeaky voices or
No, I'm telling you, my
stuff like that.
My biggest fear
I wasn't that bad.
Was that a teacher was going to say to my father, your son was acting up in class. I never would have survived. So I had to keep my head down.
See, and my father was a Mennonite youth pastor, so I had to be good. Come on now.
There you go.
And I didn't know my father, so there we go. I mean, what choice did I have there? I had no idea. Left when I was 1 and died when I was 18. And I couldn't even tell you. But true story. And anyhow, though, we're so stoked to have you in a mothership. But did we ever talk about the marijuana in Finland? Because I did ask that question earlier.
Yeah, no, we got to that. And in Finland right now, it's not legal yet. I guess.
But they do have some forms of usage.
Probably. Probably, and I suspect that they'll come around. They're just going to be careful about it. They like to think about stuff before they do it over there.
Sometimes when I listen back to the show, it's like, wow, did I miss that?
We've talked about that 3 times in this segment now. I'm just saying. That's all I'm going to say.
Oh, man. I'm sitting here looking at my T-shirts that we're selling at the 420 Canna Expo that I get all my stuff from C&O Sportswear here in Mount Pleasant, Michigan. Tim, Joe, Jordan, Christy, the family. C&O Sportswear, great establishment in Mount Pleasant. They've been around since 1976. And we're going to be selling shirts at our exhibit at the expo. We're going to be broadcasting this show live to all the attendees. You'll be able to buy T-shirts with our likeness on them. And Steve Lehto, we're hoping that you are there so that you can be on the show so people can come and meet you as well.
And the question is, if we film it, can I shoot a video of it and post it on YouTube?
Sure.
Of course.
We're going to do the same thing,
we could probably work something out then.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. And Big Hair's going to be on the show. Little John, Frank Bailey, Vinny, who was on last week, Gavin. Everybody's going to be there in attendance.
You're all your favorite characters from the Todd L. Levitt Law Show and Marijuana Law Podcast.
Get some swag. Also, and it's free to the public. Check it out, 420cannaexpo.com. It's huge.
Steve Lehto, we love you being on the show. We're just about done with this segment, but thank you for coming on, and thank you for now. Do you talk about any of this Finnish history on any of your podcast or your YouTube channel or anything like that?
Whenever it pops up, I usually have one topic per video, but I do sometimes wander around and digress and go off on tangents. So if you watch a bunch of my videos, you'll learn a little bit about my past and my family and so on. But yeah, once in a while I do.
And again, where can they find you on YouTube and on all over social media and on the internet?
Easiest thing to do is look me up on YouTube. Steve Lehto is my name. Lehto is the last name, Steve Lehto. And if you look up my website, lehtoslaw.com, Lehtosslaw. But if you just type in Steve Lehto into Google and hit enter, you'll get sick of me real fast. I'm all over the internet.
And you have blonde hair, don't you?
Blonde hair and blue eyes, my friend, just like all the other good Finns who are happy.
That's
All
right.
the other Finns. And you'll be at the 420 Canna Expo live on the Todd L. Levitt Law Show featuring Craig Russell, the Muscle, and our good friend Steve Lehto. All right, Steve. Yes.
Thanks for being on, Steve. Hey, we got to take a break. When we come back, we will wrap
Thanks,
up.
Steve.
Yes, thank you, Steve. We'll wrap up the show on the Todd L. Levitt Law Show. We'll be right back.
This is attorney Todd L. Levitt with an important message.
What's that, Todd?
Craig, mark your calendar. April 20th, 2019, the nation's premier event for everything cannabis and hemp is descending on the Soaring Eagle Casino and Resort located right here in Mount Pleasant, Michigan.
What's that, Todd?
420 Canna Expo will feature the industry's most knowledgeable professionals from cultivation, medical, recreational, research, staffing, canna tourism, smoke shops, grow shops, merchandisers, glass makers, and more. Every facet of the industry will be represented on April 20th, 2019 at the Soaring Eagle Casino and Resort. For more information on attending, sponsorship, and exhibitor space, log on to 420cannaexpo.com. That's 420cannaexpo.com. And stay tuned to our podcast for more information. Welcome back to the Todd L. Levitt Law Show, coming back strong with Steve Lehto's favorite group in the entire planet Earth from Finland. What are they called, Craig?
Stratovarius. The song's called Black Diamond. They're a Finnish heavy metal band. And we love Steve so much we had to keep him around because we forgot to ask him about something. So, Steve, hi, Steve. You're back on the show.
Yeah, Steve, thanks for not leaving.
Yeah, no kidding. Steve is gonna
so happy all the time.
When you go to the 420 Can Expo, I was asking you, have you been to the casino there in Mount Pleasant, to Soaring Eagle Casino and Resort before? And your answer to that is?
Actually, I've spoken there twice. But one of the times I spoke to the Michigan Association of Medical Examiners, which, it's the first thought is who? But in every county, there's somebody who has got to examine the bodies of people who've died in either medically unattended circumstances, or like if they've been murdered, or a crime scene kind of thing. And so the medical examiners get together apparently from time to time and have people come in and speak to them about interesting topics related to their field. And I wrote a book a few years ago about the Italian Hall disaster that happened in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, where 73 people died trying to get out of a building during a false cry of fire. And there's a stampede. And in my book, I mentioned how the medical examiner back in 1913 botched this investigation as probably political. It was a really, really strange thing. And that was back when they called the title the coroner. The coroner did an inquest. And so they actually called me up and said, hey, Steve, you want to come in and speak to us? Because we find this stuff fascinating. So I've spoken about the Italian Hall disaster to many, many groups. But for these guys, I literally just focused on the coroner's inquest, and about half my presentation was literally just looking at death certificates. I'd put up a death certificate on the screen and we'd talk about it. And it was interesting because I've spoken to other groups and I showed death certificates and people are kind of like, oh, it's a medical record or a legal record. These guys are like, oh yeah, it's cool, that's cool. So, I'll speak to anybody, but it's always fun to speak to somebody who's got a specialty like that,
I'm glad you brought up what you actually spoke about and everything, because the first thing that came in my mind is you're going to talk to a bunch of medical examiners about the lemon law. That's a different kind of lemon law, isn't it? I'm thinking
it wouldn't have made any sense at all.
No, it probably would have been something a little different, but now that you explained that and everything. So obviously you've been to the casino, which is good, and you've spoken there before. Now you'll be coming up for the 420 Can Expo. It's awesome.
Yeah, in fact, and you guys mentioned the accommodations there. I got put up there both that time, and I also spoke about Douglas Houghton. I wrote a book about Douglas Houghton, and he's the guy
of Houghton Lake. Yeah, you taught me about that.
Yeah.
Houghton Lake fame.
I spoke about him to a group of geologists who had a convention there, and I got put up in a very, very nice room. So yeah, it's the accommodations there are beautiful.
At one time, and I don't know if it still is, but I know at one time it was one of the only, if not the only, 4-diamond AAA resorts in the state. So, I mean, we're talking about this. I've stayed a couple times there. It's just a beautiful property.
Oh, man, it is stellar. Yeah. Hey, by the way, Steve, since you do specialize, amongst other things, in lemon law, our brothers and sisters in blue want me to remind all drivers on Michigan roadways that the Michigan Vehicle Code has been amended to require drivers to reduce speed, folks, by at least 10 miles per hour below the speed limit when approaching certain stationary vehicles with flashing, rotating, or oscillating lights proceeding in the same direction. So, did you hear that, folks? You need to reduce your speed by at least 10 miles per hour when you see a stationary vehicle. Keep everyone safe on the roadways, especially the men and women, the first responders, the firefighters, when you see oscillating lights that are proceeding in the same direction.
And also be careful because, this time of year, especially now with the snow melting and the road and the ground is still kind of damp and everything, in the mornings and stuff, you're going to see a lot of fog around this time of year for the next couple of months. Be careful in the fog. Make sure you got your headlights on. Make sure you're safe. Don't want anybody to get hurt. Don't want any injuries or anything. See too much of that stuff happen all the time. So just be careful.
And a big shout out to myself. I just want to give a big shout out to myself, folks. Why should I shout out anybody else, Stevie? Big shout out to Todd L. Levitt, myself.
There you go.
Yeah. Oh, anyone you want to shout out, Steve? How about yourself, Craig?
I'm good. I'm good. What about you, Steve? Who do you want to shout out to?
I'm good as well, but I do recommend that when you see those lights at the side of the road, also give them a wide berth. If there's 2 lanes, get in the left lane. I used to drive a tow truck back when I was in high school, and I tell you right now, you pull over to the side of the road, you're trying to hook a car up, and somebody goes by too close, and even if they don't hit you, it'll scare the heck out of you. So you do want to go wide and let these people do their jobs at the side of the road.
Yeah, construction workers as well. I mean, electrical people just cleaning up the highway. I mean, there's so many. I clean a highway. I mean, it's scary as heck out there.
Steve, you've led a colorful life. Not only do you write books, and not only do you know Jay Leno, and you do lemon law, and you got 50,000 YouTube followers. You also used to drive a tow truck. Is there anything else about you we should know about? You know, have you dated a movie star ever before or anything like that?
Well, I've got a second-degree black belt in Taekwondo, but I haven't worked out in a little while.
See, look at this, man.
And you're single, right, Steve?
Yes, I am. I can tell you right now that the fastest car on Earth in 1971 was a Dodge Daytona Charger owned by Bobby Isaac. Actually, it's driven by Bobby Isaac, but owned by K&K Insurance. And it did a 217 mile per hour flying mile at the Bonneville Salt Flats. I've driven that car. So it just depends on who
Unreal.
Fast talker and fast driver, man. Holy crap.
Yeah. I've also been quoted by the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal, and have appeared on CNN and the BBC. I kid you not.
Wow. My life has been insignificant compared to you,
I'm
Steve.
turning over the shit. I know. I feel puny, and that's why I gave a shout out to myself. Very insecure here with Steve Lehto of Finnish descent, the happiest country in the world. I mean, I don't know. We should probably end the show now, right, Craig?
We should. The show is actually over at this point. So thank you, Steve, for coming on.
Steve,
And
we'll see you at 420 Canada Expo, Steve.
Okay.
All right. Hey, Craig, we have to go.
Show is over, Todd.
Come on, Greg. We're just getting started here.
I know, you're just getting warmed up, but we got to get going.
All right. I'm not just a litigator. As Vinny said last week, I'm an advocator. Take us out with my favorite Finnish rock group of all time. What are they called, Craig?
Stratovarius.
See you next week.
The Todd Levitt Law Show, brought to you by Chad Mallywell Drilling of Rosebush, Clark Modular Homes, your most experienced and trusted builder in Mount Pleasant, Clear Vision Windows, Siding, Roofing, and Attic Installation of Midland, Mackinac Properties and Northern Michigan Vacation Rentals, buying, selling, and renting properties in the Straits of Mackinac region since 1998, Tim's Collision Plus in Roscommon, Harrison Power Sports, Central Michigan's fastest growing full-line Arctic Cat dealer, and Dr. Robert Townsend and Denali Healthcare for your alternative healthcare needs.
Opinions expressed on this radio program do not necessarily reflect the views of this radio station.